Welcome once again to Live with Suzi show. We are so happy and delighted to have Mr. Shane Malek, the financial consultant, the president of FMIS Inc., who's with us talking to us about our retirements coming up, all the plans and steps that are necessary to take, and the world of knowledge he has. And we are happy that he's sharing all that with us. Shane, welcome to the show. Wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Suzi. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we started, for those who may have missed the last show, we started a series of this conversation about the world of finance. And if you guys have missed the last one, you can easily go to YouTube channel under Live with Suzi, and or go to Mr. Malek's website, fmisinc.com. And all the interviews are put there. So in case you missed it, you want to know what we discussed last week, you're more than welcome to check it out. So let's begin with our questions for this week. I'd like to find out from you, Shane, to talk about the actual heirs and what's the taxation like for them.
Well, thank you for asking that, because with a lot of uncertainties that are ahead of us, basically, because by changing this administration next year, one of the things that will change, definitely will change, will be the taxes. The brackets will change, the capital gain taxes will change, so that would have an impact on a lot of these people that have this type of accounts, per se. So it is important even to understand that to begin with, but also the problem with a lot of these accounts are when you have your spouse as a beneficiary and then you go to the next of kins, unfortunately, then that becomes taxable right away. Mm-hmm. Now, even though the so-called stretch law was kind of dissipated last year, or beginning of this year, I should say, January 1st, 2020, and meaning that you now cannot sort of prolong the taxation on the children and your beneficiaries beyond your spouse. So there are now still ways to be able to have, if you have any after-tax money, commonly known as a non-qualified money, and use the same law, which is important. But you have to understand how to sort of maneuver around that to sort of, on the legal side, per se, as opposed to doing something that it might cost you tax-wise at the end of the year. So it's important to understand all that. And without, obviously, knowledge and just doing it yourself and seeing what happens at the end of the year is not going to help you. So we need to know ahead of time exactly what steps we need to take in order to be able to reduce taxes, particularly if you have elderly that have these accounts. So you have to take certain measures to be able to provide that. So it's important to even talk about it, because I deal with that on a daily basis. There's always the issues that come up, and then you realize that it's too late, and that based on the current new law, you have to pay taxes in the next 10 years. And that could be quite costly.
So is it something to do with when we actually do our living trust? Is it like something to do with revocable and irrevocable living trust that one actually has or makes? Or is it something different? I just want to understand for my own understanding.
Yes. But first of all, if you have a revocable trust, which most of the trusts are, it designates a beneficiary, or a trustee, I should say, actually, designate a trustee to carry out basically your instructions. That said, how to sort of have it set up for your beneficiaries so that they will still have to so-called use the stretch law in a way, particularly if this is an after-tax money, again, I repeat. So, in other words, this is not written in so many words in the trust the way you want it to be written, because trust elects a trustee, and then the trustee will carry out the instructions that you have. Mm-hmm. However, that doesn't exactly cover up all angles. So we need to understand. See, the taxation, it changed immensely a lot of things, especially if you are in situations where you have larger sum of money either in your IRAs or in certain accounts. Now, imagine you have to pay tons of money every year. I've got people that have, if you have $2 million in your IRAs, I mean, it's going to hurt you really hard. So before this, in a nutshell, what a younger person or younger beneficiary could do was to pay, regardless of the age, it could be 25 years of age, but you'd still pay a little bit, as it's called, required minimum distribution, RMD, much smaller amount, like it's about 0.8, 0.7% probably of what you'd receive every year, as opposed to paying the whole lump sum either in that given year or over 10 years. So it really does help quite a bit if you understand exactly what you need to do in order to avoid or reduce that taxations as the means and ways are open to utilize.
I understand. So it's possible to reduce taxes through these types of investments that you can offer to your clients.
Correct, exactly. So that's one of the biggest things that we talk about, the taxation. And also, again, I reiterate of the fact that the taxation, the whole picture of taxes, I think will change next year with the new administration. So basically what it means, the tax brackets will go up from 30, I believe it goes up, if I'm not mistaken, to 39.3 or 4, or at least they're talking about it. And then, of course, the capital gain taxes will definitely go up by a good, 7 or 8%. So those will have a huge impact on these things as well. So it's best to talk to either myself or to someone who knows and see what she can do to sort of pave ways to reduce these things along the way. Yes,
absolutely. Well, in case you guys are listening and you want to reach out to Shane Malek, by all means, 800-477-1556 is the number to call, and or go to his website, FMISINC.com. So you can go and call and get more information and talk to Shane. Again, he's been doing this for 30 years plus and helped more than 3,000 clients. So he's the person to reach out to regarding any of your finance needs and etc. Now, is there any age limit when it comes to beneficiaries and, inheritance and stuff like that?
No, beneficiaries could be any age. I mean, if you are parents in your 50s, you probably have kids in either 20s or even teen years. So it really doesn't make a difference for the beneficiary sides, because even the beneficiary or a child of a 20 or 25-year-old could still, like I said, take the so-called required minimum distributions. And when you hear this, you think that the required minimum distributions only apply to people who are of the age, which is now 72. But it's not so. When it comes to the stretch, in the case that you can utilize it the way I explained it, it could be any age. No. So it's important to be able to know it and use it the way you can. So age is really not. But for parents that have this kind of money, of course, you should, ideally, if you're in the 50s, 55, you still can take measures to kind of do things with what you have in your 401ks and IRAs to be able to provide that, one for you, for yourself, and second for your heirs.
I see. Now, thank you for answering that question as well. And of course, people, if you guys have more questions, these are my questions asking. If you have more questions, by all means, contact directly and get your questions answered and have Shane help you. The other one is, since we talk about the retirement plans, this, that, the other, does these plans work for people who are actually working right now, or does it have to work for people who are already in their retirement age?
Or no, you could be working even now, but you see the problem I have. This is a general issue. People begin to think, or most people, I shouldn't say everyone does this, but most people begin to think about their retirement when they reach the age of 50 for some reason. And then you realize you have so many short years in front of you, and how can you catch up? So, but generally, no, it doesn't matter how old you are, and I'd like to see people in their 50s, and the reason why I say that is because it enables them basically to use programs in those ages, so it can kind of expedite the earnings and put them into certain accounts. One, can generate a guaranteed income for life. Two, maximize the earnings on that with minimizations of the taxes. So all of this together, obviously, it makes a huge difference, and it has to age-wise work. That's why I say anybody is above the age of 50 can use these programs that are available to them. You just have to understand how to do this. Banks won't do it for you. If you have money in an IRA, in a savings or CDs, they won't be able to do that, those kind of things at all. So
yes, I remember you touched upon those last week when we asked about CDs and savings.
Yeah, so you need to have more information per se about what's available out there and things you can do to sort of provide all of those things that are available to you at this time. And again, the laws change, unfortunately, every day. And because of these changes, all financial institutions have to adopt to those new regulations. So there are things could be available now that may not be next year, or vice versa. So it's good to always be on top of those things. So that's why I'm saying information is very, very, very big this day and age.
Absolutely.
So we need to get empower ourselves with as much information as possible regarding particularly your livelihood and your future.
Absolutely. Well, knowledge is power, and the more we hear and learn, and the more we are able to manage our lifestyle in the time of retirement better and kind of sustain it somehow, and being used to what we've had in the past in our golden years.
You just used two magic words that it's very important for everyone to understand. Sustaining your lifestyle. Those two things are the most important thing for anyone, regardless of what caliber of life you have. It's important to understand. How do you sustain that after retirement?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Shane, for talking to us in this series that we have started on Live with Suzi, and sharing your knowledge with our followers, viewers, listeners. We certainly appreciate your time, your effort, helping the community and people who really need it the most, especially in these hard days of pandemic, etc. We have enough worries on our mind. So by knowing what to do for our retirement plans ahead of time, that's a great peace of mind. And we certainly appreciate your time on that.
Pleasure, Suzi. It's an honor to be on your show always.
Totally. We appreciate you. Well, for everyone else's sake, remember the 800 number, 800-477-1556. You can call Shane Malek, talk to him. He's the president of FMISINC and a financial consultant, and his website is FMISINC.com, and we do put our interviews in the past on that website, as well as the YouTube on the Live with Suzi. You can check it out. Until next time, we wish you all the very best and stay safe. Thanks again.